We need to get Eminem on this show. See what he thinks about Bitcoin.
Eminem, like the rapper?
Mm-hmm.
Are you an Eminem fan?
I love fucking him.
Are you serious? You like Eminem?
Dude, he might be one of the greatest rappers of all time. Bro.
Stop.
He is one of the great storytellers, bro.
I didn't know you're a big Eminem guy.
I think he's awesome, bro.
Holy shit.
Slim fucking shady, bitch.
I am learning so much right now.
Oh, dude. My choice of music is really kind of...
I like some of his stuff. I'm not an avid listener.
You ever heard the song called If I Had?
No.
If I Had $1 Million. Oh, my God. What a great song, dude. This should be my song.
We can go live. We
are live right now.
What is going on, everybody? We were just talking about Eminem and that Gary's a fan. I just learned that.
I love him. I think he's doing a big promo for one of the crypto companies now.
Is he really? I was just about to ask you if you knew if he was into Bitcoin or not.
Yeah, I think he's getting paid by somebody.
Of course.
To promote crypto.
He's smart enough to get paid and be like, I ain't doing this for free.
Yeah. Him and 50 Cent. I would like either him or 50 Cent to come on our show and talk about Bitcoin.
That's right. Well, welcome, guys. Welcome to the Cardone Corner. We actually got a lot to talk about today. A lot of it's recent news, too. The first thing that we're actually going to go over is state adoption, which is incredible. And the reason this is so big is everything that happens at the state level, by the way, sets precedent for not only institutional adoption, but federal government decisions. So state of Wisconsin buys nearly $100 million worth of the BlackRock spot ETF.
Told you this was going to start happening.
That's the first state. That's the first state to actually put that on the balance sheet. And so to be clear,
I thought it would be Texas or Florida. I got to tell you, Texas, Florida, I can't believe you let Wisconsin beat you.
And I'm still actually kind of confused as to, maybe this will tell us, but okay, so U.S. state of Wisconsin purchased 94,500 shares of BlackRock's.
94,000.
Of BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust in the first quarter of the year. So they already did this. They did this as soon as it launched.
So this is really important, and this is what I was saying, that we were going to start seeing these filings. These are 13F filings by investment firms. They have to file these quarterly. So we're going to begin seeing a slew of reporting from these pensions, investment firms, of what their allocation of Bitcoin is. So we're seeing the data now, and it's going to roll in 90 days after that quarter. Follow that? So next quarter, in Q2, Q3,
we're going to see, they pumped more in.
Totally. This is all going to be reporting post facto, right?
Normally, you don't get these big fish institutions in the 13Fs for a year or so, but as we've seen, there are no ordinary launches. That's a guy from Bloomberg. Good sign, expect more as institutions tend to move in herds.
Yep.
So that's super bullish.
They move in herds. It's very, very important to understand. These people all take the same amount of time to make these decisions. These are like policy decisions. They don't have the ability just to go, hey, we're going to allocate $100 million to this new blippity blip project, right? Or a meme coin. They go through months and months of board meetings, reviews, what's our allocation, what's the percentage going to be. I'm absolutely very impressed that we have full-on states, man, putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I thought this would happen later in the season. We will continue now to see other states will move into game theory and go, hey, look, if Wisconsin's doing it, maybe I should do it, right? So
I'm wondering, was Wisconsin and their treasurer talking to other states? Obviously, they must have been talking to the BlackRock people. I wonder if BlackRock lobbyists were involved. I'm always interested in the decision-making side of what goes into the behind the scenes. Obviously, the state government would have had to be okay with this, but I wonder, because my lobbying background, I'm like, okay, I wonder if the BlackRock lobbyists were like, hey guys, we need someone to start this. And that's why sometimes these smaller, medium-sized states are able to make moves like this.
Yeah.
Because there's less competing interest. You can be a bigger dog and get them to do something because your money works better and easier.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, people are just trying to allocate to any asset class that gives them, one, diversity, but also gives them a hedge against some of the issues that, we have a lot of headwinds, whether it's war, inflation. Inflation numbers came in today. They're a little softer than we thought.
Mm-hmm.
We got Bitcoin up $4,000 today. People don't even get excited. We have some of the best news. I was just listening to Scott Melker on his show, and he's like, not sure what we're going to talk about today. It's hard doing these shows because you're always coming up with something to talk about. Cool thing about crypto or Bitcoin is that there's always news coming in. I mean, to me, this is some of the best news Bitcoin's seen in years.
In a long time.
Like seriously, okay, getting approval for the ETF is one thing. Seeing the state of Wisconsin drop $100 million, okay, and there's a lot of stories here, okay. I could have come up with 8 stories of wealthy people. A cowboy, wealthy cowboy, has been in this since 2013. He's buying Bitcoin in a fund. You've got other groups announcing this. So I think we're in May. It's May the 15th.
Yeah.
We have now, 8 months left of the year. I mean, the year is rolling really fast now. These announcements are only going to continue. I mean, the validation that the state of Wisconsin would buy Bitcoin, like we should be popping champagne corks, okay? Because Texas will follow, Florida will follow, and then you start looking at this. I mean, Texas. I've always thought Texas or Florida or Oklahoma would be like, or Arizona. Hey, we're gonna actually play a hedge against the Fed. If I was running a state, I would absolutely put some Bitcoin on my balance sheet as a protection against the federal government destroying the value of the U.S. dollar.
You know what's also going to be fascinating about this that I just thought of is Trump just coming out as pro-Bitcoin. As more states start to say, hey, we're actually putting Bitcoin on our balance sheet and it's a part of your retirement fund, it means that states are indirectly tying
validating Trump,
but also a voter's financial interests now.
Yes.
So obviously, oh wait, what do you mean you're going to attack Bitcoin and hurt my retirement fund now? I mean, you want to talk about game theory on elections? I don't think they're thinking about that when they're doing this because Wisconsin's a kind of a swing state. But that's going to matter. That's going to start to matter. And now people who are older are going to be like, wait a minute. So the state's doing it. Why are politicians not talking about this stuff? Yeah. I think that even moves us over to our next talking point, which is still in the states category. Oklahoma just passed a landmark bill protecting Bitcoin rights. So this was passed by the Satoshi Action Fund, and then there's also an Oklahoma Bitcoin Initiative. And I know people from both of those, Dennis Porter and some of the people out in Oklahoma.
Dennis, thank you for the work you're doing, man. You're traveling all over the place. A lot of work. Appreciate what you're doing.
He's incredible. And there's also, believe it or not, Oklahoma has a state government position. It's filled by my buddy RJ, who is strictly focused on, I think he's under their attorney general, on like figuring out ways to promote Bitcoin. So they're kind of like Florida. They're one of the few states that have a dedicated position to this kind of stuff. But let's go over this bill. The bill guarantees the right to self-custody, which was a big congressional issue, if you guys remember just last week, where only 21, I think, or 27 Democratic votes voted for self-custody, whereas every Republican voted for it, and then the majority of Democrats voted against it. So this sets precedent. It sets legal precedent, which was one of the most important things. So Oklahoma, this is from Dennis's Twitter, Oklahoma will now defend your right to self-custody, right to spend Bitcoin and digital assets, right to mine, and other, what's this say? Show more. Yeah, take me to his Twitter. What else does he say? Which, by the way, the right to mine bill, which he's also notorious for, is all about ensuring that states can't discriminate against Bitcoin miners specifically for just operating business. Because there were states like New York that were trying to pass legislation essentially saying, we're going to treat you as a different subset and regulate you specifically. Yeah. This just says you're not allowed to do that. You have to treat us fairly like any other industry.
It's funny how the current government seems to be actively discriminating against certain businesses and classes. I don't know when this just became public where, states could, we're going to penalize this group of people for and make up some new rules.
Well, if you think about it, you're in oil and gas. Haven't they always been doing that? Like the government, depending on the party, has always been targeting oil and gas as an industry. I mean, hasn't the government always tried to leverage and target specific industries based on sometimes donors?
Yeah, but
Do you think this is like different?
yeah, I think the government coming out and literally, trying to put a tax on a miner. One, they're just showing their total ignorance.
Yeah, of course.
Because like you'll never win that. Like if this is a commodity, then why wouldn't you treat crude oil the same way?
Yeah.
Like Bitcoin is going to be treated exactly like crude oil. There's not going to be any tax differentiation. It makes no sense whatsoever that you would discriminate against a miner. It'll just put that would be like the Chinese get 100% tariff on any car that comes into the United States. It's going to make it impossible for the Chinese to operate here. Mm-hmm. So what they're literally saying is we're going to make it impossible for a U.S. company to compete in the Bitcoin landscape or industry. An industry that's most certainly going to be at least a few $1 trillion in size. I think, we could see $4 or $5 trillion in the Bitcoin industry in the next, say, 12 months by this kind of volume. And the dominance, if I know we're not going to get into the charting and Chris is going to join us, the dominance of Bitcoin is accelerating now. I don't think we're going to see the dominance ever lower than what we have right now, which is around 56%, 55 if I'm correct.
And I agree. I mean, we're building the foundation. All this is just like a bill like this.
Dude, a bill like this is very important. I'm surprised that this happened this early. Are you?
To be honest, actually, no, because we've had so much pro-Bitcoin legislation. And over the past, you haven't seen it, but over the past 5 years, like the amount of work, so Dennis goes in and he passes this, but the amount of time he's actually spent doing this, you're talking 3 to 5 years. And I only know that because I'm in the industry. If you're not in the industry, then you're like, whoa, like this is all of a sudden. But they've been talking and educating these people for a very long time. And in policy, it takes 3 to 5, even sometimes 7 years. I mean, just in Florida, the rule is I want to pass a bill, it's going to die the first 3 years. It's the 4th year that I'm going to pass it. They tell you that from the get-go. If you can get a bill passed in the first 2 years, you're like a god. You're like, whoa, it must have been something really good and really important. It's an investment, and you're just now starting to see the investment pay off.
Interesting. Well, I think this is really good news. I wasn't expecting this, but, the right to self-custody, the right to spend Bitcoin and digital assets at not a tax liability relative to other currencies used to buy things. Like they said that in there. Hey, look, the tax treatment cannot be different on Bitcoin than it is on a U.S. dollar when you're buying my favorite thing, buying a bag of potato chips with Bitcoin. Why you would do that, I'm not sure at this stage of the game, but they are basically clearing the way for saying, hey, look, you cannot treat Bitcoin differently. Again, like who believes they're going to get away with this? Treating an asset class very differently than other asset classes. Literally just making up the rules. Look, you professional politicians that are older than 70 years old, you're too old to be in the job. You need to let go and let some other guys like the lady we met the other day, 37-year-old Anna. Yeah. And some younger people that are better equipped for the technological age that we're going through. We're using 1933 rules on securities and commodities control the 21st century, America's move into the 21st century. It is ludicrous. It is like bringing a horse and buggy to a NASCAR race, man. Like we're going to lose. So I would just encourage people to look at when you vote in this political structure, because we are having a political fight right here.
Yeah.
We have freedom fight. To me, this is a freedom fight of introducing new technology and making it available for all Americans, in fact, all human people, to better their lives. And America standing in the way of that is not going to obtain votes. It's not going to help America, and it's not going to help American citizens. So, when I see Oklahoma passing bills like this, and I see the state of Wisconsin buying Bitcoin,
How could you not be bullish?
Like, seriously, okay? You have BlackRock, Larry Fink saying, we are going to tokenize everything. He is saying that because it's good for his business, and he's finally seen that we are heading down the digitization of planet Earth. Like, this is going to happen now, and they're preparing, not only them. By the way, this is early news. I think the CPI is not moving Bitcoin. Can somebody pull up the Bitcoin price? Because I think is what's moving Bitcoin, $4,000 today, is this news. Okay, people are like, "Whoa, these are not gangsters. This is not Eminem buying Bitcoin." Okay, now these might be gangsters, but they're some of the biggest gangsters in the world. And we've got a 4.46% move today on Bitcoin. About $4,000. It's 64-ish. And everybody was wimping out last night in our spaces, saying, hey, we're going to go test 52, dude.
Yeah.
Literally, people were saying, hey, we're going to test 52. I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off looking for some more money because all these chartists are going, hey, it's going to collapse. It's going to go to 52, 55. I'm trying to figure out how I buy some more at 55. I just think this is such awesome news.
Yeah. And I'll give you one last perspective on Oklahoma before we move into our next topic. This sets up lawsuits. So people don't always understand that one of the greatest things about passing state legislation is if Congress ever does something, if that counteracts a state law, it creates a lawsuit. And that is a key strategic point. And the more states that do this, the more lawsuits there are, and the better those lawsuits have a chance of succeeding. So even that's where some of the greatest power comes from, even small states, is the power to sue.
Right.
And so you can do it in Oklahoma, you can do it in Wisconsin, you can do it in Rhode Island, Montana. This strategy happens all the time. And so that's why I'm like, this is building the foundation. Because if we get even more states to pass and Congress or the president tries to sign an executive order or passes a law and God forbid they get it through, we have a lawsuit. And that's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, before we go to the next topic, I'm just noticing some of the comments. One, would like to thank everybody for being here. Really appreciate you being here. If you have input on how we can make this show better, please let us know. Okay, I'm totally guessing. I've never done any of this stuff before. So you're getting to see how I build every business. We're just going to make it very transparent of our clunkiness and research and our testing. And so, but we would love your feedback. One of the things that Clay Bentley said, Clay, thank you for being here. You're very positive. You were talking about how young Sam is. You're really admiring Sam's ability to articulate a conversation. And, yeah, I agree with you, dude. He's an awesome guy. I'm glad to have him working on the team. I think you're going to see him really develop as a human being. I'm going to try and push him into politics really, really hard. But this Clay says you have a good grip on things at such a young age. You have a bright future, sir, and I'm impressed. So
Thank you, Clay.
yeah, Clay. And Clay, I would like to commend you for being positive, like for saying something really nice. I think social media, one of my observations is that, we could all do a better job of commending and being nice to people, admiring people for what they are doing instead of, okay, Gary's got a hat on today. Gary looks like he didn't sleep well. Gary looks old. We could be nice, man. Like, just because this is social media and you can type something out doesn't mean you have to hit the send button. So I would just encourage everybody on this Wednesday to try to be nice to people, okay? Do something sweet. Commend somebody. Commend your enemy even for having some, skill. If he's your enemy and you've identified him as your enemy, he's doing something to get your attention. So I would admire the cat. Anyway, that's my end of my little Gary blurb. But do we have any other people saying anything interesting?
No, I mean, we got a few people. I mean, what's cool, guys, by the way, if you haven't noticed, we got a different setup. This is our first Cardone Corner live in our new studio, which you're going to also probably see either this Sunday or next Sunday when our interview with Congresswoman Luna drops. But hopefully you guys like the new setup. I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited to see how this plays out. I love this setup.
I'm having to get used to it. It's a little dark in here for me. There's some whiskey over there, but it's 10 o'clock in the morning, so I don't think I'll do that. Anyway, I was in here the other day. I took my shoes off. I'm talking to Anna. I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable. I start taking my shoes off, and she's like, "What are you doing?" Oh, sorry, I go barefooted a lot.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyway, so just someone asked. Laura84 says minimum amount to invest in Bitcoin to make at least $1 million by 2030. Ooh.
That's a lot. What do you think?
Uh,
To make at least $1 million by 2030. What year?
by
were you?
2030, man.
2024?
I think that
Well, so if you have one Bitcoin now, do you think that'll be $1 million by 2030?
I think 3 Bitcoin might get you there.
3 Bitcoin, so that's
210,000.
at the current, 210,000 the current price.
Yeah.
All right, there's your answer.
Now, but maybe Laura, look at it this way, right? Your upside is unlimited. Your downside is, what is the downside? I look at Bitcoin and go like, is Bitcoin ever going to be less than $1 trillion industry? It makes no sense to me that we would ever see a 30% drawdown from here. That's why I like to look at Bitcoin as a market cap.
Crypto Crow's saying 150K. You don't think
Crypto Crow, good to have you in the room. I love having you other guys in this. You guys that are doing the other, I support all you guys doing this podcast. It's awesome. And love having you guys collaborate. And you think it's going to be 150 crypto by 2030? Ooh, hope you're wrong there, pal.
Well, I think he's saying invest 150K now, and it'll hit $1 million.
It'll do a 5.5, 8x.
So you don't think Bitcoin will be $1 million by 2030? One Bitcoin will be $1 million bucks?
Well,
I guess that's a Chris question.
I don't think that it needs to be $1 million bucks to, why would this person need $1 million?
Yeah,
that's my. I mean,
it's the wrong question.
Well, first off, $1 million is not a lot of money in 2030. $1 million in 2030 will not be a lot of money, guys.
That might buy you a bag of bread, depending on how bad things get.
could, but it's not a lot of money. You have a tax event, you're gonna have to pay. You're gonna end up with $600,000.
Yeah.
Right. So $700,000, and to me the question is, what other asset class would you have that you would even consider with 10x? Or 15x. Why would it need a 15x? I'm okay with a 3xer over 5 years. That's my minimum. A 3xer. It's done 45%, okay, for the last couple of years. So 45% times 5 years is 250% return. I just think that no, it's more than that. It's 250, 300% return. So to me, if I get a 300% return, awesome. If I get a bigger return than that, it's a gift. It's safe.
Yeah, Fiboswamy has a funny point. We're assuming the tax rate stays the same. You might only get 200K.
Yeah, see, I agree with him, but I don't think you can do anything on taxation now.
No.
You'll destroy the market, okay? Well, no, you can't charge me more tax. It'll destroy the market.
Do you think they care, though? Have they ever cared about destroying the market when it comes to taxation? Is that actually, don't they purposely try to destroy certain markets with taxation?
Well, they end up with so many loopholes. I mean, I just don't worry about the taxation piece of it. But I mean, I hear what Fib's saying. It could be the case. The more tax goes up, then as Bitcoin matures, it only leaves me in a position where I'll not liquidate any of those.
Yeah.
I will find a way to leverage my Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure, dude. You start getting many, many hundreds of Bitcoin, you'll be able to go to a bank and with other assets also and say, hey, look, I'm not even leaving this here anymore. It's either give me some leverage or I'm going to move it to someone that will give me some leverage, that will free up that will allow me to move around my Bitcoin without moving my Bitcoin, right? Without taxing the Bitcoin. So I don't think they can do, look, you can't tax your way out of this problem. There's only one way for the U.S. government to fix this problem, and it's not even fixable. print more money. There is no other solution. They will print more money. It will drive all asset prices up. And then you're going to have to figure out when to sell and get the fuck out of that shit. That's my opinion, okay? Like, you continue to stick morphine into the body until the body decides it is going to just go into full-on rehab and go through the pain. There is not a politician on this planet that's willing. One, you're not going to get it voted in.
Yeah.
But saying, hey, the economy's going to be destroyed here for the next 3 years. We're going to go into a major depression and reset everything.
Yeah.
Who's going to win any election on that? Nobody, dude. And the whole planet, even the crypto bros, they want the U.S. government to print. They would love Steve Mnuchin back, dude. Just print it out, dog. Just print it out.
And Chris is in the chat now. I'm sure he'll be coming on soon. He says, "Mo money, mo money, mo money."
Yeah, I sure like Chris. He's an awesome guy.
I had a question.
Franklin, I agree with you, bro.
I had a question on taking out the leverage because I was just reading a report, and I know you know this. A lot of wealthy people, they're borrowing money and spending the bank's money, which isn't taxable because it's debt, I guess, is what I heard. And so do you see the real benefit of Bitcoin going up in value is just being something that you can just borrow off of using fiat and then just spend the fiat from the bank that'll take the Bitcoin as collateral, kind of like with other assets that the mega wealthy have? So it's not about selling your Bitcoin. It's about having an asset that then you can use to essentially get borrowed money from a bank and just spend that money.
I think I believe within 3 to 4 years, Bitcoin will be a better collateral source than all the other collateral, other than gold and silver. That you will end up getting the same kind of leverage or more against Bitcoin, and the reason would be, hey, it's 24/7 liquid. Okay.
Yeah.
Like when a margin account calls in, let's say you borrow $100 million, right? Like some of these apartment buildings right now.
Yeah.
Commercial real estate and apartment buildings are being sold for 30, 40% discounts right now. The problem with real estate is not liquid. Not liquid at all. Okay, like, hey, need a bid right now. Well, it's a $500 million deal, and it takes months to close these deals. So if you're borrowing up against real estate and you're having defaults, the banks are at some point going to wake up and go, hey, we could lend against Bitcoin, and we have 24/7 liquidity. Right? That's a very big deal. I mean, there's big write-offs occurring in the real estate market right now. I mean, we should probably do a show on that. Like, you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars in losses from families who bought in 2021 and 2022, early 22, and shit the bed, dude.
Yeah.
They bought a bunch of $300 million apartment buildings and did a floating interest rate, thinking that interest rates were going to just go at zero forever, and now they're paying 5.5. So their covenants, the covenant is, hey, you have to have certain cash flow requirements relative to the loan to value, and if the cash requirements break, even if they're still making the payments, the lendee, the guy that borrowed the money from the bank, is in default. Technically, he's in default.
Yeah.
And then the bank sees, oh my God, I have 300 deals, all worth $300 million, and they're all defaulting. They're defaulting technically. So they immediately go, hey, you need to dump this product. The lendee, the guy running the property, says, yeah, but I'm still making my cash payments. And they're like, we don't give a fuck, dude. You need to sell the property because you're out. And what the guy that borrowed the money doesn't understand, this bank has 300 of these problems. So he has to act. Even if the guy's still making all the payments, the bank will act. And that's what's happening here. So I think the banks are going to start comparing illiquid asset collateral versus the most liquid asset on planet Earth that no one really talks about, Bitcoin, in the banking world. Whoa, 24/7 liquidity, instant liquidity. So to me, it's we will be able to borrow, and that we're just in this early phase of Bitcoin's maturity. The people haven't been comfortable doing that.
And by the way, when we say
by the way, I will loan money to you if you have Bitcoin. You're gonna have to give me the Bitcoin to hold, okay? But I will loan you money against Bitcoin for sure.
and people are saying, well, you can borrow Bitcoin now. We know you can borrow Bitcoin now, guys. What we're really discussing is when you can borrow it at a reasonable rate, when it's like you can borrow on a home. Right now, the interest rates are just far too high on borrowing or using Bitcoin as collateral. However, I've talked to people, for example, at Unchained who, their clients are miners and they use Bitcoin as collateral. And they love it because if you don't meet your loan obligation, boom, instant liquidation, Bitcoin sell off, they have their cash. There's no going through a process at all.
That's right, man.
Which, side note too, we've gotten 3 questions about Liquid Death. They need to sponsor us because we're giving so much free ad revenue for Liquid Death. They're like, how is that Liquid Death?
I gotta tell you, okay, I have had 1,000 doctors, and if this doesn't get Liquid Death to sponsor us, I don't know what will.
I know. So what do you think? Does it? Yeah, go ahead. Is Chris ready?
Chris needs some Liquid Death.
Chris, are you drinking Liquid Death right now? He's probably drinking coffee.
see me?
What do traders drink?
Chris,
What do
Chris
traders
is like,
drink?
I'm from Texas, dude.
Yes, Chris.
We drink
They
whale
can
water.
they can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No.
He's not talking.
Can you guys hear him?
No, I can't hear Chris. Chris, I can't hear you.
Really? You can't hear me?
I can pretend to hear him and shake my head.
All right, give me 1 sec to figure this out.
Just part of the new studio.
Okay, hey guys, this is Ryan. Okay, strike one.
You know what's crazy is I was talking to Ryan before we did the show. The amount of work that goes into, and you guys will never see this unless we do a little behind the scenes show.
That's what I wanted to do yesterday. Show you how fucked up this thing is.
Like
it's a lot of work.
This guy has a monitor, 3 different machines. We have 3 cameras, 2 lights, wires everywhere. And so to even get something simple like, oh, why can't I hear Chris? Which I can see Chris right now. He looks beautiful. But like I can't hear him. Like the amount of different wiring interconnections that you have to do. And it's really, I guess we can't hear him because we were roasting him so bad yesterday on Twitter. Or the audience was. Maybe you didn't want to do that again.
Well, while we're having a technical problem, so back to Liquid Death, because I'd like you guys to sponsor us. I know Mark Yuska, a friend of mine at Morgan Creek, he invested in this company early on. I do not know how he could do that, dude, but he loved the story. I pitched him Node 40. I'm like, you bought Liquid Death, but you wouldn't invest in Node 40. Anyway, for probably 15, 20 years, I've had doctors go, dude, you just do not drink enough water. Like, you have to drink. This is the only water I have been able to drink my whole life.
Why is that?
I don't know. I think
Is it the
tastes
can?
good. It might be the metal, okay? They're always super cold. Now, I don't like drinking it out of the can, personally. It needs to come with, like, an automated little straw or something. But I love the water. Anyway.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to communicate with Chris. So you'll go Chris.
Oh, my God.
Okay, so Gary won't hear Chris?
Okay, we're jerry-rigging it now. Okay, got people in the background. Jerry.
Yo, what's up, Chris?
Y'all need some tape?
What's going on, guys?
Oh, living the dream. Is there any way we could put him actually on a speaker?
Yeah.
Or will that mess up the mics?
Need some tape? Need some glue?
Yeah, or I wonder if I could even pull up on my phone.
Shit,
It'll be delayed.
let's just send them the $1,000 and cancel them.
Cancel. That's fine. If we can't do that this time around.
Everyone can hear him. You can hear him. Gary cannot.
It's okay.
Would you rather hear him?
It's okay. Go ahead.
What's up, Chris?
What's going on, man?
Chris, how long have you been watching? Did you see us? We were talking about, the first thing we talked about on the show before you got here was Wisconsin put the Bitcoin ETF on their balance sheet, and then Oklahoma passed a bill to essentially protect Bitcoin. So we were talking about institutional adoption, which is great because the very next thing that we were going to be talking about is actually some of the people who were investing in Bitcoin. And so we have a few articles here, like one, BlackRock, Fidelity, Bitwise Bitcoin ETF grabbed $205 million from New York IRA. We have the Rothschilds. Come on, the Rothschilds are getting involved. You want to talk about bullish, which I love this because if you were to take a poll from our Twitter spaces yesterday or even this audience, who likes the Rothschilds? They're all going to be like, screw those guys.
I
but
like
now
it better now.
Yeah, now they're pumping your bag.
Yeah.
What do you got to tell us, Chris? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's par for the course. Something I often talk about is that when you reach when price is rallying for a while and then it goes sideways, you're basic, retail trader tends to then start questioning about it going higher. They want it to go higher, but because they really don't understand how markets move, and what's going on with it, and how to read that on the chart, all of a sudden, the longer it's going sideways, the more depressive they get, the more they start thinking, even if they want it to go up, they'll start thinking, oh, it's got to go down. It's got to go down because, again, it's the fear of the unknown. And, I've been talking here for the last 2 months about how we're just sideways and how the likeliest thing is that we continue higher, that we printed a spring below the range at the 56,000 level. And so, for me, we're just range bound. We're just, I'm still looking for higher up. There's nothing happening right now that says that we need to go lower. And so when I see things like, Wisconsin coming in, which by the way, guys, I don't know if people really understand how huge that is. That Wisconsin, that's a pension fund. Pension funds usually wait a while. They want to make sure that liquidity is in the ETF and whatnot. And so, pension funds honestly were something I wasn't expecting until maybe later this year, till, maybe like end of Q3, as Gary and I have been talking about for a while now, where we really kind of expect to see a lot more adoption with these Bitcoin ETFs. So Wisconsin coming out and doing a pretty good little bid for it right there at the gate, the first quarter. I mean, that's huge. That's huge. And so that makes me even more bullish coming up toward the end of Q3, Q4 of this year, because, these big institutions, it's like once you're a competitor or once
Chris,
Chris,
could you ever imagine that we would be talking about that in May?
No, I mean, obviously anything can happen, right? I'm a big believer in that, but I honestly, I did not have it on there. I thought for sure it was going to be, again, end of Q3, beginning of Q4 before we really started seeing any pensions. And that was at the earliest. It was more likely going to be, next year coming in. But it's just been insane. And so, you see that, and then we see the other things going on. It just should kind of solidify your ideas on what Bitcoin's potential is, because it's getting serious adoption. It's getting real players in there.
You guys are up.
Well, Chris, tell me, how bullish are you? I mean, let's once again go over some of these headlines. I mean, we've discussed before, okay, we're going to have a long period of sideways action, right? That's what I've heard from you. How much longer can this period continue if we're seeing institutional adoption like we would have never guessed? I mean, like you're saying, pension fund, huge deal. And what I find fascinating about this stuff is they were investing before we knew, right? Like this happened, we just are able to see it because of the filings that were revealed. How are we not about to break whatever sideways pattern this is? I'm not the trader. I'm not the trader. So are you just waiting and you're seeing these headlines and you're like, oh, well, we're still going to be sideways because that's what the chart says? Or are you seeing these headlines and being like, hey, this sideways action can't last much longer?
Yeah. So for me, with this morning's rally, I mean, really, I want to see this close today's high so far. I want to see kind of like a close there or above on the daily to really kind of solidify it. But locally, it does appear we're headed up into new all-time highs from here as far as the count on the waves goes. And, how quick does that happen? That could take another month before we get a new all-time high. I don't think that we spend the next, the entirety of summer before. So I could see us making a new all-time high, within the next month or so, potentially. So, but for me, really, trading isn't about, immediate time frames. Trading for me is more about the levels. Usually when we're trying to figure out, time frames, especially on the more shorter time frame movements, we tend to get it wrong a lot. And so since there's on my end anyway, I'm not very good at that. So I don't really look at the time frames a whole lot. But for me, like I said, we've already been going sideways for 2 months. I mean, there's other ways this could play out. This could end up being some large triangle. But the fact is, if this is a wave 4 and wave 2 was that long 7-month period prior with the flat correction, technically speaking, this should be more of a, done now and head up. But we'll see what happens.
So let's talk about this news right here from Swan. Former lead of BlackRock's ETF business is in line to replace Vanguard CEO. A lot of people were bullish on that because essentially what they were saying is, hey, the guy who's kind of behind a lot of this Bitcoin ETF stuff is now going to potentially be the president, right? Or the lead of the whole division, right? Replacing the Vanguard CEO. So I think, I know we kind of say this on our Twitter spaces. We say it when we go live on these Cardone corners. And I guess people still just don't get it. But why even watch price action at this point? Like when you see these headlines, like I get why you watch it, but what is there to worry about? Like, except, hey, I hope the price goes lower so that I can buy more. That's the reason to watch. But it's amazing to me that people are still going to complain when we see dips or that people are going to freak out.
Yeah, Chris, why are people looking at the price every day?
Well, because everybody wants to be traders. Everybody envisions themselves increasing their capital account as prices going up. Sadly, and this isn't me again being disrespectful to anybody, but sadly the truth is most of the retail traders really don't know what they're doing, and so they end up losing money trying to trade it along the way. And this, again, something I've talked to you about a lot, Gary, as far as even as a trader, you should have a separate bag over there of Bitcoin. Even if you're going to trade Bitcoin, you should have a pack, sitting over that you don't touch no matter what. Because especially the newer you are, the less experience you have as a trader, you want to have that bag over that you're not touching because Bitcoin price continues going up. You don't want to, you don't want to screw yourself. I have too many people that get in here and they've been trying to trade Bitcoin all the way up from, maybe if they're lucky, 20,000. And they really have nothing more to show for what they've done along the way. And I think that's where you have to be kind of realistic when you're in the market. It doesn't mean you can't learn to trade. Obviously, we teach people to trade every day. But it means, that does take a certain discipline, a certain focus, a certain commitment to learn how to do. Which most people, really don't expect, and they don't want to put that kind of effort into it. So, depending on however you're looking at it, I mean, gosh, I said it in 2017, January, when I first came into crypto, I said that Bitcoin is the opportunity, right? It is the one opportunity, generational, once in a century, whatever you want to call it, this one time that most people who are alive right now are going to have. There's been nothing like this, and you don't want to screw it up, right? You don't want to screw up your opportunity to be a part of this. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Gary, you're up.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Gary?
I think the concept of, hey, don't screw it up would be my first principle. Like if I'm looking at this market, my first principle is do not fuck this up. Okay, this is a cool opportunity. It's an opportunity I have been searching for 30, 40, 50 years, my whole career, dude. And once, I've been through so much to see an opportunity like this and to be able to grab it, knowing that, because I like your point. And Chris does the day trading for a living. He's really good at it. He's got a multitude of degrees. He's been doing this, and this is what he wants to do. But for me, this news here, the fundamentals of Wisconsin and other states, every state is going to buy Bitcoin. Every state, maybe not California. Okay, well, California will do it too because they're Silicon Valley. They have to, okay? They will all have to. And to look at this, to know that my sister, 75 years old, can get in front of this train, still today, that we can still get in front of this train. $63,000, $64,000, $65,000, I don't care, man. Like, this thing cannot be, I keep saying, hey, it's a $1.3 trillion asset going to $3 trillion. And the funny thing is, the more it strengthens, the more the pensions are going to come in. Now, what's going to be really interesting is if we're all right and Bitcoin's price is 150,000, do these pensions do a reallocation? Because the percentage of their AUM, I mean, I just saw a small pension do 23% of their AUM is in
Really?
Bitcoin.
23%?
I sent Greg another one. I sent 5 of these this morning. Okay,
didn't see the
23%
pension
of their
one.
AUM. It was like a $900 million pension or an investment group, and they plug in 23% into Bitcoin. So as this thing goes up, as Bitcoin goes up, there's a lot of view on, hey, they will reallocate. I'm not so sure because this is their first allocation. Look at these numbers. I've been telling everybody, these people don't play in one Bitcoin. They're dropping $2.5 to $100 million. These are businesses. Imagine the wealthy firms.
Yeah, is this approximately 23%
There you go. Look at that,
of Pine Ridge Advisors? Total AUM. What is their total AUM? Does it say?
205 million.
Wow.
Yeah, dude.
And that's nothing compared to the New York State pension, the California pension. I was doing research on that. I was looking at the, because of a previous call we had maybe a month ago, what the top 5 largest pensions were. 2 are California and 2 are New York.
Yep.
Right? One's the New York State, one's the New York teachers, one's the California State, one's the California teachers. Just the amount of money. If they just did 1%, it would dwarf that 205 million.
Yeah, so I'm asking Grok right now, how big is CalPERS? I think CalPERS is one of the biggest.
CalPERS, that's right.
Right?
And I could even...
And Grok is saying, something went wrong.
So if I just look up list of largest pension funds, U.S.
CalPERS runs 500 billion.
446 billion specific number. That's insane. And so look at this. Number 1 is the federal retirement thrift, so federal employees. Number two, largest pension fund in the United States is CalPERS, the California Public Employees. Number 3 is California, again, the California State Teachers at 288 billion. Number 4 is New York.
They're half the size of CalPERS, guy.
It's crazy. I know. It's crazy how big just one pension fund is.
So let's just look at CalPERS, Sam. So 1% of their allocation is $4.4 billion, okay? A 1% allocation. Pine Ridge put in 23%. By the way, that is close to what BlackRock's internal conservative model is. I think their conservative model is 26.8. They put 23% in.
What do you mean conservative model?
BlackRock accidentally released a report last year or so with an analyst saying the proper allocation of Bitcoin is 86.4%.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And people freaked out. So there was another meeting, as I understand it, where they said, look, we need a more conservative profile than 86%. Redo it. And it came into the high 20s. These guys are doing 23. But let's get back to CalPERS, okay? That's $4 billion. And right now, Bitcoin's at 64,000. That's 70,000 Bitcoin. Okay? You know what I think? They're not going to do 1%. They're going to do far more than 1%. They could do 3 or 4 or 5%. Okay? So you're talking about 350,000 Bitcoin showing up in CalPERS. That's one player. Look at the size of these boys, okay?
I mean, what's crazy is if CalPERS does it, California State Teachers, the 3rd largest, is going to do it. And you know, if California does it, New York's going to do it. And New York are 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Here's us, small little Florida.
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the downsides of being a low-tax state is your pension funds, your state pension funds are small.
Yeah. Yeah, Chris, what do you think? I mean, are we completely off? This fundamental, see, for me, as a long-term investor, fundamentals are more important than the charts. So I look at this as tremendous fundamental demand that we've not seen, and it's a long-term hold.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, this is what we're looking for, right? It's not
Chris?
okay. So Wisconsin going in this first quarter and saying already, hey, listen, we're already in for 100 million. That's, you know, that's significant in and of itself, but it's not significant I guess I should say it's more significant in what's to come, right? So this is the, hey, let's surprise everybody kind of thing, or, it's going to be surprising to everybody. But it's what does this lead to? And that's as we get into the end of this year, potentially into next year, where you start seeing these other pension funds, where you start seeing these other larger wealth management funds getting in there and allocating more, and you start kind of small, you kind of dip your toes in, and then you go. I like this thing with Wisconsin. I don't think this is the end. I think this is like the very little. I'm going to dip my toes in at the very beginning. Let's see. I think we want to do this, but we want to be safe here, so we're going to do this at first, and then as it's going, we're going to add more to it. And I think that's the bigger story. It's been great. It was a little surprised to see him coming in here and doing this so early, but again, I think the bigger surprise is, if we look at it correctly, this is just the beginning of their push into Bitcoin, most likely. And we would then see, again, other pension funds kind of doing that same thing.
Sam, you're up.
Yeah, I just think when you're looking at some of these pension funds, I mean, it's just fascinating to me. And of course, once again, not the trader, but like, how do you, I guess my question would be, Chris, how fast or what's the timeline to when some of these state pension funds start getting involved? I mean, when you look at Wisconsin as a trader and you're looking at trends, is that just the tip of the iceberg? Is that like the launching pad? I mean, I was telling Gary earlier, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now on the policy front has taken years of work. I mean, these people have been being massaged and there's been advocates on the state level for quite some time. But now, like, I know what I do in the state of Florida. Whenever I want to lobby in the state of Florida, if Texas has already done it or another larger conservative state has already done it, it's a lot easier for me to sell. Now I can go, Wisconsin's doing it and we're not, and we're supposed to be a leader in this space. Like, the game theory is one of the best sales techniques that you can use. I mean, everyone loves FOMO. Government still gets FOMO. Right? People don't understand that, but government gets FOMO like anybody else, right? They have to be first, even if it's for a bad reason. California gets FOMO. They want to be the first state to not have any gasoline cars, right? Might be FOMO for the bad reason, but they still get FOMO, right? I think people kind of miss that whole marketing to government. So, I mean, Chris, what are your thoughts? Or maybe Gary, what are some thoughts on states getting FOMO'd into some of this too? Or governments in general getting FOMO'd?
I don't know about FOMO, but now it's systematic. It's systematic now. They're on a plan now. They're all coming in, man. So whether it's FOMO or, hey, now this is Bitcoin's movement for institutional, they're just all going to come in. I mean, Bitcoin is growing up. Bitcoin is like. The simple way for me, it's the only 15-year-old that's been invited to every country club, man. And all the country club members are coming in now.
What does this mean for retail once pension funds are now involved? I mean, does retail's power, if it was ever relevant, become completely irrelevant? I mean, does it become more sidelined?
Retail
doesn't matter.
I don't think it matters personally. I think retail will come in next. I mean, what is retail? Like, is it every consumer on the planet, or is it most retailers don't invest in the stock market? These are machines, man, like big money machines. So they're held in ETFs, and I just don't think the retailer is going to drive the massive demand that this type of demand is going to just swamp the demand of retail. I mean, this is being allocated. People need to correct themselves. The Bitcoiners in this community, Bitcoin is not buying Bitcoin. I mean, BlackRock is not buying Bitcoin for itself. BlackRock is buying Bitcoin for its investors, for its people that are investing in the ETF. BlackRock is not buying it. Like, they're not making the decision.
So that is retail.
It is retail, and it's institutional, but it's, retail doesn't deal with BlackRock. Like, you would have a very difficult time getting into BlackRock. Like, it's not, hey, I'm 27, I've got $12,000 in the bank. They're going to be like, well, good, call me back when you got $12 million.
Yeah.
right? So that's not, is that retail? They don't serve that retail level. Robinhood serves that retailer.
Gotcha. And Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Gary's dead on there. There's one thing that retail doesn't like to hear, but the reality is in the markets, professionals, the larger, more experienced, more funded of us out there, not even myself, but the institution, whatnot, and then large hedge funds, they consider retail liquidity. And what does that mean? That means, these larger players are, accumulating and they're distributing. They're distributing when, at the end of a trend, when retail's really FOMOing in. They're accumulating at the bottoms when retail's really down and out and thinks it has to go lower. And what they do is they're soaking up all that supply so that like when it's at the bottom, if you think about Bitcoin, what is, 15 and a half there, down at the bear market low. And so what was happening for months prior to that, and then that final swing low there in that area, is that they were accumulating. And so retail's thinking, oh gosh, it's got to go to 12,000, 3,000 is going to zero, whatever they're thinking. They're all selling. Well, that takes all that supply out of the market, right? Those who intend to sell are selling at that point. And then it makes it very easy for price to rally because you don't have all that retail still kind of selling into it, right? So basically what you're doing is you're siphoning all that liquidity from retail, for those who are definitively going to sell at that point, and you're pulling it out, and then price starts rallying because there just isn't a whole lot of retail selling left to do into that. Now, along the way, this doesn't mean all retail trades the same way or all professionals trade the same way, right? We're just talking about generally speaking. And so the thing is, when you get to like the ETFs, where you have retail and you have institutions and you're going to have hedge funds, right? And especially with hedge funds are going to be in and out, right? A hedge fund may run a short strategy where they're trying to hedge against their short just in case price goes out higher, right? So, I mean, you're going to have people buying and selling all the time, right? And people sell at all levels. You have to, when you're looking at the ETFs, you have to kind of divide yourself between those, retail, maybe that's going to get feared, so they're going to sell it because they've got that bias toward, smaller numbers. And so they freak out because it's getting up there, or they just want to sell and lock in profits. Or again, your hedge funds maybe that are out there that are locking in profit or doing more of the trading rather than the investing, right? So you've got that on one side. And then you've got the other side in the ETFs there of like the institutions like Wisconsin. Wisconsin isn't going to be jumping in and out every day, every quarter, anything like that. They're in for a while. Something really, really, really significant would have to happen, I believe, for them to pull out. And it's the same way with a lot of pensions. So, when you're looking at this, and then you've got your wealth management, who has its own levels, right? You have the lower end of wealth management, which may be more apt to jump out. The clients may be more apt to jump out. If they get scared. But then you have your other side, the much more higher end of the ultra high net worth, who are going to get in and they're going to stay in for a minimum of a year or, 2 years or 5 years. So, I think when we speak about these things, we always try to generalize and simplify it. But at the end of the day, there are all these kind of dynamics playing in there. So, somebody was mentioning there in the comments, how many Bitcoin can these funds possibly purchase if BlackRock is already holding 270,000 Bitcoin, and the same with Fidelity Custody. They're only 21 million Bitcoin. State funds will not have the access they need. But, again, this is not infinite. Everybody that's buying is not going to hold. And I think that's the thing that people have to kind of get over, right? As price continues going up, you're going to have people that have numbers. Everybody's got a number, guys. Everybody's got a number. If you don't think you do, you definitely have a number. And you'll find out when it gets hit. I'm not telling you it's tomorrow. I'm not telling you it's 100,000. I'm not even telling you it's a million. But I'm saying you do have a number, right? And so, this is all these dynamics are playing in there. But when we can focus on things like Wisconsin and other pensions coming in and stuff like that, things that are going to hold likely for a much longer period, that's what you need to look at as far as, okay, the Bitcoin are off the market. and they're, stuck in cold storage for a while. But everybody else, they're going to be pretty easy to have a price.
All right, Chris. Well, you have been the man. I really appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing some of your thoughts. I always love your commentary, especially when you're talking about retail. I know retail doesn't like to hear you talk about retail, but I do because I am retail, right? I am a retail investor, I guess. So it's like useful to kind of have an outside perspective about like what I am. And so I always appreciate that. And it also just helps me make sense of some of the larger charting and trends. Gary, do you have any closing comments for Chris?
Chris, thank you for being here, buddy. Love you. Love what you're doing. Really enjoy the, our difference in viewpoints are, I think, really healthy for the audience. One's very long-term, fundamental. One's a technical. So trying to give you guys both perspectives. Look, we're at 65,000. People are saying that Bitcoin's boring. We're at 65,000. It's moved just today. The opportunity to be able to buy this product to me is like so stupidly interesting that you have full days that you can buy at $6,000-$7,000 below the day prior. This is going to be a trader's dream. This product you're going to see a lot of trading. There's going to be every player in this asset class. There's going to be day traders, midterm traders, option. The amount of options that are going to trade on this product are going to be absolutely staggering. And we're going to see a lot of this chop because we're getting more liquidity. We're getting more large players in here. To me, this is the most bullish news I've heard about Bitcoin. When I say news, this is now real validation, people putting real money at this.
Yeah.
These are staggering numbers, okay? And I do believe that Bitcoin's not seen this type of money before. My question, maybe we can discuss it next time, is if Bitcoin really performs as it has in the past, do these funds reallocate on a regular basis? I don't know how fund looks at, I allocated 2% and now it's 6% of my total bucket. Imagine legacy assets start crashing, Bitcoin goes up. Oh my God, the relative value of that Bitcoin in that pie of holdings for that pension firm, they start, it goes from 2% to maybe 6%, then the legacy assets go down.
Yeah.
It takes up even more part of that pie. Do they reallocate? Because their board's going to say, hey, look, we want an allocation of this and not much more. So that's going to be really interesting to me. Now, it's relative to if Bitcoin performs as we expect it to. At $90,000, another $30,000 move, $25,000 move. This changes that allocation from 2% to probably 3% in a very short period of time. So if anybody knows Eric Balkunas at Bloomberg, I'd love to have you on the show to talk about, hey, what are you hearing pensions, how are they going to deal with allocation if we have the kind of 40, 50% moves that we've seen in Bitcoin over the last few years?
It's so fascinating to me because when I was at a hedge fund in 2021, it was interesting because they were talking into pension funds all the way back in 2021. And there was, during that hype cycle, up to 60, 69K, like, hey, are they going to finally buy in? And then, of course, you had the dip, all got cold feet for those 2 years. And now they're getting in. Now they're getting in. And so to see that kind of cycle, it really does, someone told me forever ago, but as long as you can survive, you'll win, right? And maybe there's some truth in that, is if you can just hold to your truth and your instincts and just make it through these low periods, everyone does come around. Do you think there's some truth in that? If you can just survive, you'll win?
Oh, I think, that's the way hedge funds look at this. Hey, don't blow the principal.
Yeah.
If you don't blow the principal, then you're available to survive the other day. Remember, these pension funds, their job is not to take on a bunch of risk. Their job is to make a 7% yield. That's what they're trying to do, 7%. They have to make 7% to pay out all their fees. 7.5%. As inflation goes up, as interest rates go up, that number changes. But they have to get a yield of somewhere between 7 and 8% to make that pension work. And they're all competing with each other, by the way. These states are competing. These funds are competing. So look, it's I don't know what else the market would need to get excited. We have $65,000 print, followed by about news categories of five different groups of people, one being the Rothschild family. You know, you got Pine Ridge putting in 23% of their AUM. You've got CalPERS is probably going to report, hey, we have some Bitcoin. We're just going to see more and more of this news. And not that news should drive or a narrative should drive a price, but this is fundamental demand that is being reported. And this is unusual, okay?
Yeah.
Like if this was nat gas when I was doing my whole commodity play, nobody knew what anybody had. Nobody knew that Exxon was moving into buy, okay? We're literally getting news because this is public, 13Fs. We're getting news that some of the largest companies on planet Earth are buying Bitcoin. I think we end the show there. So, I mean, it was one thing having an ETF. Now we have firms buying 23 to 2% of their AUM, $100 million wedges. Hey, I'm going to end with this. Don't fuck this up, okay? Like, I just don't know any other way to say it.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity that people are going to screw up if they're not really careful. And I think we're running out of time where, and if you look at the dominance of Bitcoin is just creeping up. And I don't see why, I see no reason for that trend to stop, which is bullish, man.
That's as
Very
bullish as you can get.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, hey, thanks for coming on to Cardone Corner. Thanks for attending, listening to Gary and I and Chris. We'll see you every Wednesday. And then if you aren't on Twitter, get on Twitter. Make sure that you're attending our Twitter Spaces, which are going to be 5 p.m. Monday and Thursday from this Thursday onward. So looking forward to seeing you guys. Thanks again for tuning in.
Yeah, guys, retweet, subscribe, like, do all the things you're supposed to do to make the algorithm work, okay? That's all we're trying to do. Get the algorithm work. Let's get our community a lot bigger and stronger. Love you guys.